Okay, hello, Nathaniel Thompson. Please share with me your thoughts and feelings while watching the movie Titane.
Titane is a movie that I had no idea what I was in for, what I was actually watching, or where on earth it was going to be heading. And that is a very rare sensation, especially if you're a horror fan.
Mm,
And I do think this is a horror film. It sort of drifts in and out of that genre over the course of its running time, but I think it's at least 70% a horror film. But I went to go see it at a multiplex here in California, actually down in Redondo Beach at an AMC, which was the weirdest place to see that movie. Normally, you go to see like a Marvel film or whatever, but they do have this one screen they dedicate to, art films. And
mm.
lucky me, that was one of the few films I paid money to go see in a theater during COVID. So I sat there with my mask, and yeah, it just really blew me away. I love that sensation of where you feel like there's no safety net underneath you, and that movie just delivers that in spades.
Absolutely. So, why do you think this movie was not nominated for an Oscar?
Have you met any Academy voters? That's I mean, Drive was too strong for them, for God's sakes. I worked at the Academy for about 10 years, so I've sat in on a lot of member screenings, and yeah, you can tell what kind of movies just they're like amazing films that are just it sort of hits way past someone's threshold. David Lynch does that a lot. That's why they sort of had to give in and give him an honorary Oscar because there's no way they're going to give Mulholland Drive or something like that an Oscar. It's too out there for so many of the voters. And yeah, this one was definitely way out there. Although I got to say, the foreign language branch, they're definitely edgier. I mean, these are the guys who nominated Dogtooth, for God's sakes. And that caused us huge stink internally. I don't know if you remember when that happened, but yeah, when the Academy at large watched that movie and started voting on it, they were like, "What the hell are you doing?"
That's great.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this one was just a little too much. But at Cannes, they loved it. I think this is one of the nuttiest Cannes winners of all time. And it was even pretty divisive there among some voters. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's a masterpiece.
absolutely. So, I read someone. This was on Facebook or something. They said the movie is critical of the concept gender utopianism, which is concepts I didn't follow up looking into. I don't know what that means, but I imagine it means it's critical of trans identity. So, what do you think of that? How do you respond?
Well, to me, that phrase means what people are trying to sort of push towards, which is that there will be a future in which things like gender, sexual identity, sexual orientation, that they will have that nobody will be sort of boxed into any sort of definition. Basically, you are what you are, and that's it.
Mhm.
I don't know that I would say it's actually critical, or that it's an undermining of that idea, in that it sort of uses people's discomfort with that idea as a weapon against them.
Mm.
Because I assume if you're listening, you've probably seen the film, but if not, I'm going to spoil it a wee bit. The gist is that sort of our anti-heroine, I mean, she's a serial killer after all, that she goes on the run and she assumes the identity of a boy who's been missing, and develops a relationship with the father that, not surprisingly, goes in a sort of a sexual direction. You're like, well, did this exist before? I mean, it's very ambiguous. You're not, even at the end, you're not quite sure what happened before the movie. You have to sort of
Mm.
write the story in your head, what happened before and what happens after. And I kind of love that, how it doesn't spoon feed you everything. But I think in a sense, maybe, yeah, it is saying that just because we say that we're something in our head, that maybe that the fact that there will be a world in which that is so may not be the case. Just because it identifies this doesn't mean that everyone else is going to just sort of say, "Yep, great, good for you, that's it." That may never happen, and maybe it shouldn't happen if you're a crazy serial killer.
Okay. Yeah. So, structurally, with the script, the story of the movie, back to the just the focus of the movie. How did you feel about the transition from exotic dancer on the offense to the firefighter as a disguise in retreats?
I really liked it because in a way, it kind of reminds me of Irreversible, because that also has a very sort
Mm,
of dual structure to it. I didn't know this film had that structure. I tried to go as close as possible, but I do like, especially the Europeans and especially the French, seem to be very at ease with that, where you'll do this gear shift. And I liked that it became this kind of bizarre, kind of familial love story in a way. And you had like that kind of the strange sort of like homoerotic firefighter rave dance thing, and then you have her doing her dance on top of the fire truck, which is insane. And I like that because the violence pretty much stops about halfway through. Like Irreversible, it kind of doles out the worst stuff at the beginning. So if you make it to the halfway point, if you walk out of the film, you're kind of screwing yourself over because you don't get the payoff.
yeah.
It's like once you get to that halfway point, you're really over the hump as far as the strong material goes. Like all the murder is pretty much done by that point. And you also have Vincent Lin comes in, and he used to be this sort of French teen heartthrob actor, and here he's this sort of like beefy firefighter guy. like inject steroids into his butt over the whole movie, which is really weird to see him make that transformation in there as well. He used to be like this puppy dog guy starring opposite Sophie Marceau in romantic comedies, so that's kind of bizarre as well. But yeah, I like that shift. I like it when you get sort of two films for the price of one.
Mm, definitely, yeah. It sort of kind of, I don't know if the word deconstruct makes sense for this. It kind of, it's one thing, and then it's the shift makes you kind of question what we saw in the beginning in a sense.
Yeah. And does it even happen? I mean, you don't even know for sure if what you're seeing in that second half is real because she's insane. I mean, she's got this,
Well,
oh, sure.
I'm doing an interview. Okay. Sorry. So go ahead.
Um, I mean, you are sort of in the shoes. You're walking in the shoes of someone who is, obviously not a normal, you know,
Mhm.
person neurologically speaking. And so, is the whole second half, is the whole identity switch, the firefighter thing, is it real? I mean, you don't really know for sure.
Mm.
I prefer that it is. I mean, the movie's more fun if you take it that way. But who knows? It could all be happening in her crazy little head after she's gone on the run after her latest killing spree.
Yeah. So I personally like that I don't fully understand this movie, or I feel like I don't even begin to understand this movie, like such as our anti-heroine, as you say, getting impregnated by a car. So
Right.
what do you make of that piece of business?
Well,
What do
you
you think
sort of
that
just roll with
means?
it. Right. I mean, you kind of roll with it because at the beginning there's that car crash where she has the
Mhm,
plate put in her head, and so she's obviously. Uh, I mean, you could write some sort of Cronenbergian backstory if you want that created some sort of internal osmosis in her where she could, sort of generate herself like a la Samantha Eggar on The Brood. She can sort of, impregnate herself through,
mhm.
automated devices. You don't really know for sure. But again, I kind of like that it is just so nuts that you fill it in. Again, going back to David Lynch, yeah, he does that a lot. The third series of Twin Peaks is like that, where I loved every second, even though I think I only understood about 70% of it, maybe.
That's
Which is,
probably being generous too.
yeah, I mean, that's probably ahead of a lot of people. Yeah, most people are like,
Yeah.
maybe 50? I don't know. But I don't mind that. I don't mind a film again that leaves sort of these spaces for you to fill in, for yourself, and that's why you kind of go back and you want to watch it again because it's not a film where you watch it one time and you're like, okay, I got it all, I'm done here. It has a lot to offer. It's something like kind of Holy Motors is kind of like that as well, which
Yeah.
is another really divisive one. But again, that's a movie I kind of like going back to every couple of years because I always
Mhm.
kind of catch things that I never saw the first time. Like, oh, now that makes sense. Now I see what they're going for with that scene. So yeah, it's one of those.
Definitely. I remember listening to a commentary track on the older version of Santa Sangra that Severin put out, not the 4K,
Yeah.
but the on the commentary track, the reporter is kind of hounding Jodorowsky to explain things,
Right.
and Jodorowsky, kind of forgot, or maybe there wasn't any meaning to begin with. Maybe it's just a kind of a different way to tell the story. It's kind of fun.
And that's one of his most straightforward movies. So
Yeah, that's true.
imagine them trying to do a commentary on Holy Mountain. I mean, like, they can't even start. Sorry.
Yeah. I think signs and symbolism, it's just like we kind of maybe we instinctively feel something or gravitate towards an emotion,
Mhm.
but it kind of takes the piss out of it to explain it fully or to have it explained to you fully. And the people like I don't know, Jodorowsky or David Lynch, something's going on, but they don't want to intellectualize it. It kind of cheapens it in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like if you lay out a full map of like, oh, this is what I mean. Like I said,
Yeah.
Mulholland Drive is one where there are at least probably 200 essays out there, people explaining what the movie is. Like, here's my reading of blah
Mhm.
blah blah blah, and no two are the same. Which I think is a beautiful thing. It's like you can make that movie whatever you want, and you don't see a lot of that with American films. I can't think of many off the top of my head in the last few years that have done it. Aside from David Lynch, obviously, but maybe like Sorry to Bother You, for example, is one that does it. But there's
Mhm.
not a ton, and I kind of wish there was a little more of that. Where it's like I mean, a Marvel film is like fun, but it's like once you've seen it, you've kind of seen it. It's like you don't have
Yeah.
to go back, and there's just not. I don't feel compelled to go back and watch it a second time for like 2.5 hours when I got everything I
Yeah.
can. I like movies where you feel like you should go back maybe every year or two and like, oh yeah, there's more to this, and like you want to talk to people about it and see what they think about it because when you have that discussion about that movie, then you want to keep going back again and again and again.
So the movie is quite violent as well, which I
Very,
love.
yeah,
The kill spree scene is really fantastic.
yeah, but
And
hilarious at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. It's just everything. It's funny. It's crazy. It's very impactful cinema.
Yeah.
So, do you have a favorite kill?
Well, I mean, the whole orgy scene, I think, is just is amazing because I mean, the gist of it is she goes to this house where she's going to kill someone. And it turns out that it's a really big house, and they're preparing to have this orgy. And like all these, like every time she kills someone, another person keeps popping out of the woodwork. She's like, and she gives this look on her face, like, "Oh my God, not so yeah, I mean, just that whole 10-minute scene is just probably just my favorite. I mean, obviously the
Yeah.
whole the impaling is great. I mean, it's shocking, but it's kind of almost like Peter Jackson in a way, just it keeps
Yeah.
escalating, and you're like, my God, where is this going to end up? You know, it's never going to stop.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of when she takes a seat on
yeah,
someone.
yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yes, there's it, and it's pretty much practical effects as far as I could tell, which is also that always kind of makes you wince a lot more. The more practical blood, the better.
Did you hear about the people passing out watching this movie during the Toronto International Film Festival?
No, it doesn't surprise me.
So I talked to the programmer who programmed this movie about this, and he said the scene when Adrienne breaks her nose.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So what the woman did is she saw it coming,
Mhm.
but she looked away, and the sound of the broken nose made her pass out.
See, I feel gypped. I've only had someone pass out one time in a theater when watching a movie. I wish that would happen more often.
I know. I told him that too. He was like upset, like he was like feeling that as a responsibility,
Yeah,
and I wanted to congratulate him. I think that's fantastic
yeah,
because the
yeah,
movie clearly works.
yeah. Obviously, that it's a compliment. Yeah, yeah. I could definitely see the nose scene getting to people, especially if you have a history of broken bones. Because if you've ever heard your own bones break, that sound is yeah, that can trigger some stuff in your head. Sorry, go what?
Did you like the score?
Yeah, the score is really good too. It's kind of sparse. Like there isn't a
Yeah.
ton of music in it, but what's there is really good. It kind of rides that whole sort of techno meets synthwave kind of thing that's been going
Mm,
on. Which a lot of films have been doing that, but this one does it interestingly because it's a lot of it is diegetic music.
mhm.
So you're especially like the fire truck scene, for example, and like this the fashion show scene or whatever you want to call that, the car show scene.
Yeah.
But a lot of that music is sort of woven into something that the characters actually hear and that they're sort of performing to, which is always very interesting. So it kind of feels like the really intense violent scenes don't really have music. There's sort of like a sound effect layering that goes on
Yeah.
underneath. It's yeah, just really unsettling. But it doesn't really give you any music cues to sort of respond to, which is another reason why I think like the nose breaking, for example, why it disturbs you because it doesn't give you any sort of music to sort of offset it and say like, oh, there's a distance here. It's like it doesn't really pull back. It just keeps going and going, which is smashing it.
All right. Well, Nathaniel, thank you so much for your time. I love talking to you today about Titane. Is there
Pleasure.
anything else you've got coming out this year that you want to talk about?
Well, I have a new book. I can't say what the title is, but it'll be coming
Mm,
out in August. It'll be debuting in the UK. I'm very excited about that. And I have a television project that'll be coming up for Halloween. So for you who like to stream horror programming, keep an eye out, and I'll be announcing what that is shortly as well. And a lot of audio commentaries coming up too that are in the can.
yeah, some of that Christopher Lee
Hmm?
stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee Volume 3, the Severance set. I've got a few tracks in that one. I'm very proud of the track I did with Troy for the Puzzle of the Red Orchid or Secret of the Red Orchid, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But that was one that was very close to my heart. I pushed hard to do that one, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. So if you get that Christopher Lee box, please listen to that track. I think it's one of our best.
Oh, wow. And that's saying a lot. You guys have done how many at this point, do you think?
Over 30, I know for
Over
sure.
30.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, yeah, we definitely have a good rapport going on, and yeah, I always love talking with Troy. He's great, but yeah, we've got some really good ones. But this one was, like I said, this one was a real personal favorite, and I was really glad we could do that one.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.